Are you ready, Jenny? Because we are live, and we are live. Here we are. That was awkward and unprofessional, and we've been sitting here for 10 minutes and looked at the camera, looked at the clock, and it's like, oh, it's time to go live.
6:30.
And then Jenny's like, I gotta go get a bunch of stuff. I need this and this and this, and then I had the camera set up wrong.
But we're ready to go.
We're ready to go.
So welcome to Go Box Art Crate's YouTube channel. I'm Jenny.
I'm Paul.
And we are going to guide you step by step through fun painting tonight. This one's called Moonlit Waterfall. I love the color palette on this one. Purples and blues, fun to do.
It's a nice cool palette for August.
Yeah. We're using acrylic paint. We are a subscription box company. You can paint along with us using your own materials, or you can subscribe to our box where we send you 2 unique projects every month. Guide you through it, and there's some other swag in there too.
Now, if you subscribe to the box, it really helps us be able to put out more material.
More content.
You know,
yes, that's true.
Doing things for free is fantastic for you, but it doesn't really help us much. So,
well, let's go ahead and zoom in on the painting, and
let's
talk about it.
Talk about our painting scheme.
Okay, so here's our palette. 4 colors. We've got black, white, phthalo blue, which is just a deep dark indigo. And then this beautiful violet color, which I love. It's really opaque, and it works beautifully for this painting. So we've got a moonlit scene. I did a couple paintings before I came up with what I wanted to do. And I couldn't decide between the 2 of them, but I ended up liking this one just a smidge better. So that's the one I went with. I was sort of aiming for kind of a dreamy look, maybe something you wouldn't necessarily find in nature.
It's always interesting each month because we kind of take turns picking the palette.
Yeah.
And so Jenny said, these are the only 4 colors. You can add another color if you want. And I was like, no.
You accepted the challenge.
I accepted the challenge. So next week we'll get to do it.
So in your kit, if you're a subscriber, you will have gotten these step-by-step printed instructions, which are helpful to follow along with, especially if you get stuck or really need to see up close what I'm doing. You can pause the video anytime, even though it's live. And you will have gotten your Go Box Art Crate coaster, which, guess what? It's the exact same size as the moon because I utilized it for that. And then our sticker this month I love. It's a Monet painting that I zoomed in on. And it says, what keeps my heart awake is colorful silence. But I love this painting. It reminded Greta's our daughter, reminded me and her a lot about Howl's Moving Castle.
Oh, Studio Ghibli.
Yeah.
Miyazaki.
So materials-wise... Oh, did I cut you off? Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, if you guys are looking for a fun movie, that is a fantastic movie.
Yeah, Howl's Moving Castle, amazing.
It's animated, but it's good for all ages. It's not like I wouldn't call it a kid's movie, per se.
I've watched it probably 8 times. So, let's have a look at our supplies. I have an 11 by 14 canvas.
There it is.
Our little brush pack that when you subscribe, you get your first set of brushes, which should, as long as you wash them and keep them well, they should last you for a very long time. And then our paint colors. So let's move this aside.
Get it out of here.
We'll reference it off and on. Let's do a quick toast.
Oh, you got I just have a mug. I mean, a can.
Cheers.
Cheers.
To painting. Friday night painting.
Friday night painting.
Okay, well, we're going to start. You want to have a cup of water. I don't know if I mentioned that. And then some kind of paper towel or paint rag, dry your brushes on. Let's take our biggest brush to start. So this is a 3/4 inch flat brush. And I'm just going to brush it gently back and forth across the bottom of the cup just to wake it up. And then dry it off on the towel. Make sure you get this metal ferrule dry too. And let's mix a little... What are you doing? You keep looking back and forth.
Well, I feel like the canvas looks a little trapezoidal, but maybe you just have it angled.
Okay, so we're going to take a little violet and mix it in with some white. We want a very pale lavender. This is going to be the glow around the moon, so it is going to be very light.
If you dip from your white, take from the edge, right?
Yeah, we always take from the edge here so we don't pollute the whole paint color. And the sky's going to gradually get darker as we make our way away from the moonlight. So let's start right over here and just back and forth, up and down. Just swipe on a good patch of this purple paint, a little bit bigger than your coaster here. If you don't have a coaster and you're painting on your own without the subscription, you can
improvise.
Trace a glass Empty, of course.
I mean, if you're having a glass of wine and you just want to throw your wine glass on there, why not?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Why not? So as we add, as we add darker colors in around this is going to reduce down in size. And so make it a little bigger than maybe feels right.
Linda says she loves Howl's Moving Castle.
Oh, yeah. It's so great. It's just a feel-good movie.
What did we discover? Most of the Studio Ghibli films are on HBO Max. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so let's take now, and we've got our little lavender mix. I think I used up all of mine, so I'm going to make some more. And it doesn't have to be the exact same shade. I like it when there's varying tones in the sky. But we are going to work away from this and gradually get darker. You can have a look at this original and see how quick it goes to dark. But what we have to do is some fading. And I will show you that as we go along. A lot of it we have to go back to do. So let's put a little more purple in your blend here. Bring that in around the side. Overlap the edges of your wet paint here.
Now I'm finding that these two particular colors, and I think it's the violet itself, really accentuates the brush start and stop marks.
Yeah, so you will notice that. You'll have some white stop and start marks. Around the outside, we'll clean those up a bit, but where the moon goes, it's totally fine to have them.
It's funny, some colors seem to just amplify that more than others. And it's something to do with the way the viscosity of the paint.
That's it. Use your big words.
Big words. Viscosity, gelatinous.
So now I'm going... Okay. Now I'm going to start adding a little blue into here. Just a small amount. Use the corner of your brush. Pick up a tiny dot of blue. Let's get it in there. And you'll see right away, it changes it up pretty quick. I need to add more white and purple because I was dealing with a very small amount of paint. And it's drying fast in here. It feels hot in here.
It is warm in here. But we're in a brick building and it tends to hold on to the heat.
Brush this around the edges. Overlap into the color you just put on there. You can see my brush strokes are pretty sloppy. Years and years of teaching at the sip and paint studio we own, Vingo. We've kind of gotten to where we just always do circular brush strokes around a moon. And I've personally been trying to break away from that just because it's so common. We want to be a little different.
I like to think about moving around circularly, but using brush strokes that are the opposite of circular.
Choppy little messy brush strokes. So let's go ahead and get even a little darker here. I need more purple, more blue. So each time we add, I want it to be at least a shade darker. And feel free to pause the video anytime. It's hard for me to sort of gauge how fast or how slow to go, but I do know YouTube tends to want our videos not to be too long for reasons.
That has to do with how long people want to sit and watch.
Yeah.
So if we move slow, people are like, I'm going to bounce.
So yeah, no, you can pause it anytime. Come back and work on certain parts. I taught a couple Zoom classes recently. I actually taught about 800 Amazon employees in 2 Zoom style, well, it was Amazon Chime classes. That was a lot of fun. That was just a week and a half ago or so.
Yeah, it was a couple weeks ago.
And then I did a party for a university last week. So that was fun. Definitely go a lot slower in a live feedback sort of setting like Zoom. All right, let's get some more blue in here. And some more purple. They're both nice dark colors. They look beautiful together. I love these two mixed. It's almost like a dark periwinkle. One thing that helps with blending, like you can see my fade is pretty decent. It's very graduated. And that's a hard thing to do if you're just starting out, because a lot of it has to do with the amount of paint you're using. And it's something, though, that you'll learn. And we'll go back and clean up some of this and make it blend a little bit better, too.
I think the trickiest thing with learning blends is with this paint is they all react with each other differently too.
They do, definitely.
So like I've got this issue going on right now where...
Well, they're different brands of paint because there's certain colors we like in one brand and maybe it's not available in a brand that we normally use, so...
I've got this little issue going on where the purple is wanting to lift more when I'm going back over trying to blend.
Yeah.
So I'm having to be careful not to overwork an area.
One thing that I found that's helpful is when your paint is still wet, and if you keep trying to add more and more to it with acrylic paint, it's just going to lift the first coat. It's just going to push it around, and it's very frustrating. So one of the things I'll do, like at this point where I've got a lot of stop and start marks, thin bits of paint, heavier bits of paint, and I kind of want to smooth things out a bit, I'll wipe my brush off or just run it out of paint and just really lightly, with no or next to no paint on your brush, just lightly, hardly any pressure at all, drag it around on your canvas as that paint dries and gets more sticky, and you can kind of smooth things over. Without adding more paint.
One thing a lot of times that comes up, I've encountered in the studio, is people up trying to blend paint that's already dry.
Yeah.
So once your paint is dry, you're not going to blend it.
A little harder.
Yeah, acrylic paint, once it's dry on the canvas, it becomes waterproof.
Yeah.
So unlike watercolor you can kind of refresh and stretch a little bit. But acrylic, once it's dry, that's it.
So I'm bringing this down, covering like the top 2/3-ish of the canvas. And what I'm going to do now is show you how to go back and fix any blend issues where, like, if you have a real hard line where your moonlight area suddenly goes from this light to the dark and there's a definite noticeable line between those two values, I'll show you how to blend it. I always like to blend the light color into the dark. It's just my personal preference. I do want to wash the brush off and dry it off. If you're painting flat like us, you definitely want to make sure that you clean off the metal or get the metal ferrule dry, because you'll get a rogue drip of water that will roll down slowly and then splat on your canvas, and that can be a little difficult to fix. So I'm going to try to mix something, actually I'm going to try to mix something that's close to this area. Wherever it's close to you, where your hard line is, if you have that. So it's this white and violet for me. Maybe even a tiny bit of blue. I've got this mix here, so that's probably good. You don't need a lot of paint. It's better to have little on your brush at least. So I'll hold my brush up and see, does that match? Oh, it's close, but not exact. Maybe a tiny bit more purple. That's pretty close. Now when you mix paint, you end up with a lot on your brush. This is something we don't want a lot of paint on our brush for this particular step. So I'm going to dry or wipe off some of that paint. And then I'm just going to start in here, very light pressure, just smudge outward into right over the seam where your dark color and light color meet. Now this is only if you are having issues with the blend. I needed to add a little more purple to mine, so I actually just mixed it right on the canvas. That's
never wrong.
No, I like doing that, and I know you like doing that. You do that almost every painting of yours. But yeah, very light pressure here. We're just sort of very lightly manipulating the paint on the canvas. And then if you need to move into where you're adding more blue back in, just do a little at a time. My paint's drying pretty good. One thing that you guys can do is keep a hairdryer handy. When I'm designing the paintings for the upcoming months, that's what I do. I keep a hairdryer right there.
Me too.
And I will... So I don't have to wait. I'll dry it real quick, like in 30 seconds. You know what's crazy? You guys won't believe this. We have our September paintings ready to go. I've even got October ready to go.
Yep.
We are ahead of the game. We should show our September.
I can go grab them.
Yeah. Mine's here. It's got the 2 red trees.
Yeah.
So September, I start thinking about fall things, which makes me happy. It's my favorite season. And so I definitely bring out the oranges and reds and yellows. So yeah, I've got a little spot here where the paint doesn't want to stick.
We're going back to square canvases in September.
Yeah, so September we'll bring back the 12 by 12 square canvas, which is a fun shape to work with. I do like changing the shapes because it really can change your painting choice of what you design. Like what I design would be a little bit different on a square canvas. Okay, let's see. You guys keep working. So Paul has done a, what did we name this one?
I don't know if we named them yet.
I don't think we've named them yet. Paul has a really pretty sunset, right?
Yeah.
Sunset painting with lots of fun clouds. They're very loose. They're one of those things where looking at it on the monitor here, they look really developed and nice, but in person they're not. They're very simple and...
Yeah, they're actually really... I hate to use the word easy, but from a technical standpoint, there's not a lot going on.
Yeah. So that's fun. It's got some kind of little ice cream shack there. Is that what that was?
Yeah, I thought it was like, maybe it's a snow cone hut, or maybe it's a tiki bar. I don't know. Or it could be a surfboard rental place. But I think
I
it's
like
snow
the
cone
waves.
shop.
You know what we could call this one? Last Days of Summer. That's the vibe.
I like that, yeah.
Last Days of Summer. And then I went for more of a fall painting. So mine's... Oh, this isn't the one. This was the...
Oh.
That was the
prototype?
That's close. That was the prototype.
Well, where is it? I'll go find it.
It's on the table there. It's just further down.
Ignore.
Yeah. That one we just showed you is very similar. I just changed up a couple little things. Made it... I noticed some of the steps in that one when I got through it were a little more involved. So here we go. I'll have to think of some name for this, but I like the feel of that.
They look like dancing trees.
I like the feel of it with the sunrise there. Kind of gives me just a morning and autumn sort of vibe. Oh yeah, Linda, I'm with you. Can't wait for fall. Honestly, is the best.
So I work outside during the week for my day job, and I can't wait for fall.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when I'm looking at the forecast for next week and seeing 3 days in the hundreds again.
Ooh, yeah. Okay, so I'm getting pretty close here to moving on. As long as I don't mess with this too much. One of the things I did on the original, and I think I mentioned it in the instructions, that is something you can add. If you feel like you want an even darker level up here in the corner, it's hard to tell in the photos if you have these sheets, but I actually did brush, probably best to mix blue and black together. Very, very small amount because this is going to be really dark and intense. So I made it very deep navy blue. And I started in this upper corner and just brushed inward, letting my brush run out of color just to deepen this corner here, and we can put more stars there. Sometimes I add these steps in, and it isn't until I'm teaching them that I'm like, why did I do that?
I feel that this part of my canvas is getting really tacky right now, and I don't mean like in a yellow suit with a red tie tacky. I'm talking about like it's getting sticky tacky, so I need to step away from that just a little bit.
Yeah, well, we're ready to move on anyway. At least I'm ready for this next part. We can always go back and touch up the sky. We've got time throughout the painting. One thing I do want to do, get my hair out of the way that's shedding off. We have this little strip of water across the bottom, and it's the same colors as the sky. So while we've got this on our palette, let's just paint. This is probably about 2 inches in height, 1.5 to 2 inches. Taking your large brush you were just working with, clean it off if you had the black and blue on it. And let's see, I need to make a little more paint. I'm gonna add a tiny bit of white to that. Having it a little bit lighter on the water is great because you've got the moon shining down there on that. One thing that's helpful is I'll turn the brush and use the skinny edge and then just Go straight across. Just parallel the bottom of your canvas as close as you can. It's never going to be perfectly straight unless you use a ruler. And then just back and forth with your brush. So this is a little river or pond or something.
Well, it's probably a river considering there's a waterfall.
Yeah.
I mean, could be a little pond.
It could be a pond in a man-made pond in a park.
Yeah, recirculating pond.
One thing that looks really good when you paint water is to mix some of this on your canvas. So I like dab my brush in some white, especially right under the moon, and brush back and forth. And then once that has run out, maybe I'll grab a little purple, brush it in here, just little bits of color at a time. You can see I don't have much on my brush. I don't have a giant glob at all.
I kind of reference the balance of color in the sky.
Yeah.
Like if you've got more purple on the left-hand side, you should probably have more purple on the
Yeah,
left-hand
like
side.
I've got a lot of blue here, so I could add some of this blue and purple mix.
This is just kind of underpainting though, right? Like it's not...
Yeah,
doesn't have to
we
be-
add some water ripples in it later. But I do want to get this, while the paint is wet, I like brushing some of the white on here because it blends out really nice when it's wet. I bought a painting from an artist I've been following for, gosh, maybe 4 or 5 years, because my sister-in-law had some of his art. He's in Arizona, and I follow him on Instagram, and his name's William Hawkins. I am in love with his art style because it's so different than mine. And so I finally bought one, just a small one, what I could afford. And I just love it. It came the other night, and I opened it up. It was like 10:30 at night. And I was like, oh, I bet that painting's in the mailbox. So I sent Paul out to get it. And it smelled just like linseed oil. I loved it. Brought me right back to 1994. College art class. When I was first experimenting with oils. Which oils is my favorite medium. Love to do it. Would love to get back to it at some point soon. So let's go ahead now and paint our cliffs. You can see on the original they're a little bit higher than this, so I'm going to overlap into that just a bit. And the cliffs get 2 coats of paint. The first coat we put on is going to be very see-through. You'll see a lot of brush marks and bits of white canvas showing through. So they do get a second coat later. Let's take and wash our brush. Well, this is good time for our sky to dry in the water. And we are going to mix black and blue, probably about equal parts, maybe a little, if anything, a little less black, but really it doesn't matter.
Just as long as it's darker than what you got on there, right?
Yeah. Let's talk about the shape.
Let's talk about it.
We have lots of time to redevelop the top shape of this. So what you paint on right now, you're not going to be locked into. But one of the things I do when I paint a waterfall, I think about the water is going to work for years carving into this rock. So usually it's going to be dipped down just a bit. I do like to put an extra little peak in there. We can paint that with a smaller brush. So then you have a split waterfall. That's just kind of a fun thing to do. And so I'm going to have it, it's going to start here and then sort of dip down and then gradually make its way back up. So let's find the spot. So we want to have our moon right here. I don't want the cliffs to overlap it. I'm going to just put a little mark right there. That's about where I want it to go. So not quite to half of the canvas, but everybody's layout will be different. It's okay. And I'm just going to you can tap. Sometimes it's helpful to just tap in your rock face. Right here, I'm going to straighten out a bit for the waterfall. We'll add that little triangular stone in there in just a bit. And then sort of jaggedy tap. Look at that. That's pretty easy. It's like I'm painting it's like I'm painting while going through an earthquake. And now all we have to do is color down to here. So a lot of times it's easy to just mark this off. We are going to shade some of this into the water in a bit because it needs to be, but let's just mark that off. And then color that whole section in. Your brush strokes don't matter here. Choppy is kind of a nice one to go with because we're painting a rock face. And your paint doesn't have to be super thick because it is getting a second coat. I am not mixing enough paint tonight. That's very, you'd think that like by this point
I don't know what to tell you.
have it dialed in.
I feel like the paint's kind of working weird tonight, honestly. It might be me, but
It's working pretty normal for me as far as like these brands that like the purple, which is the only one that's a different brand this month. But it does feel really hot in here. You said you turned the AC, right?
yeah, but it was only like an hour before we came. Or not
Oh,
even an
dang,
hour.
Paul, we'll blame you.
Yeah, I mean, you always do anyway. So why change?
If your paint's being
why
weird, you have no one to blame but yourself.
Linda wants to know what the spelling on William's.
Oh, yeah. Yes, so you should definitely look up his art. It's amazing.
What's the
I
spelling
just
on
love it.
his
So
last
it's
name?
Hawkins. It's Hawkins.
Kins.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like Hawkins School in Stranger Things, right? Isn't that what the
I
school's
think that
called?
yeah, it is, but I think that's spelled ENS.
Yeah, this is INS. His Instagram page, that's what I follow mostly. It's WM_Hawkins.
So what you bought was like a little study piece, right?
Yeah, that's all I could afford was one of his little study pieces.
That's all right. I think I like it a lot. I mean, I think more of us could spend time doing study pieces.
I should have brought it in to show it off and give him some good exposure. I've told him before on Instagram, I've been like, I promote you shamelessly on my YouTube channel. Because I've talked about him several times because he is definitely my very favorite living artist.
Did he give you a discount?
I didn't ask for one because I think about selling art and, you know, I probably would never ask another artist for a discount.
No.
I am going to put in this little triangular. You could type his name in there, Paul.
Oh yeah, I guess I could, couldn't I?
I'm going to put in this little triangular stone, probably right about here.
Oops, I guess I gotta
Spell it right.
type it in the right place.
Brush-wise, I think I'm going to use my number 8 flat. That's my second largest, which is quite a bit smaller than the largest brush. You can dip it in the water, wake it up, especially if this is the first time you've used your brushes. They have a coating on them that makes them a little crispy, so they stay in shape. But we can wake that up by brushing it lightly across the bottom of the canvas. Bottom of the water cup, and then dry it off. And I'm going to use the same Cliff color, so that was the black and blue mix. And right about here, a little offset, because I know my main part of my waterfall is going to go here, and it's about probably an inch wide. And then this little trickle over here is going to be a little less than half an inch. But I'll just do a little jaggedy pyramid shape. I tend to over smooth my rocks. It's something that I struggle with.
Just think of like the old crazy glue.
What do you mean?
Set it and forget
it. Yeah, set it and forget it. That's what I need to do. So if you need to, you can use this time to sort of refine any boulders through here without smoothing them. That's what I'm trying to avoid.
I think that's probably like, with landscapes, being a little bit of an aficionado when it comes to landscapes, I think that's probably the number one thing people struggle with is trying to smooth everything out too much.
You know, I think that's why I like William Hawkins' art so much, because it's so not what I usually do. So I look at it and I'm like in awe. I'm like, that's what I want to, that's my goal. I want to shoot for that type of art. But I know that it's so different than I would have a rougher time. I'll just appreciate it. What are you doing there?
I am just doing my thing.
Okay.
I'm just painting the painting the way I would envision it, and that's okay because that's the way everybody should handle every painting, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's move on to the moon while this dries. So this is where you pull out the coaster, if you have it. If not, find some small little bowl or cup, mug, whatever to trace. It doesn't have to be this big. This is a relatively large moon for this painting.
Hey, you know how you were just talking about like letting free a little bit more when you paint?
Yeah.
I got the perfect thong.
Thong?
That
Perfect thong.
That would be awkward. I got the perfect song for you. It's the Queen song. The I want to be free or whatever it is. You know which one I'm talking about.
I want to break free.
That's it.
Yeah, that one's a good one.
That's it. That should be our theme song when painting and trying to get over that hurdle of.
I'll have to play at the start of every painting I do.
Do it.
I'm cleaning my brushes off. I'm going to go to my small one to trace this coaster. And that's this little guy here, number 2 round. Let's get it in the water. I like to add a little drop of water to some white.
Oh, we're doing our...
And then I'll kind of do a little twisty thing on my paper towel so I don't have water on this or extra paint. And just place the moon where you want it to go. If you want to do what I did on the original, it's probably 3/4 of an inch from this side and maybe close to an inch from here. But really what I would do is I'd look at where your lightest spot is, and that's where your moon should go. So my lightest spot is definitely right through here. And I'll just trace it. This particular tracing does not have to be perfect at all. It's more of a blueprint, just something to work from.
You know, though, this is the easiest way to paint a perfect circle.
Yeah. And lift that off. Okay. Wash the little brush off. We aren't going to use it again for quite some time. But we can go back to our big brush to fill the moon in. When I paint a moon, I actually really like the way this one came together. And I will use white, obviously, and then I sort of let my brush run out of paint, and I paint from the edges inward. And those areas where my brush has run out of paint, like here's a perfect one. There's a very thin coat of paint on it, because you do dust a little white across it. But it creates the effect of looking like a crater. So let's just dip that brush, pick up a little white. See, I didn't pick up much. And like I said, I like to go around the outside and start working inward in short little brush strokes. My brush is running out of paint. I think that looks kind of cool just as it is, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Oh, I like that. Very Star Wars-y.
I was going to say, it looks like the Death Star a little bit. I'm wearing one of my Star Wars shirts right now, too.
Rebel Alliance.
You know, the more times we say Star Wars, the more we bump up in the listings on YouTube.
Let's talk about Star Wars.
George Lucas, Star Wars.
It looks
Spider-Man.
really cool, though, like, as it is where you've just got the one side shaded in.
I've done.
If you like that, you can leave it that way, guys.
We've done that in the studio a couple times with like, not on like specifically on one of the paintings, but I've had a couple students do that where they just kind of do the one side and leave the line on the other side, and it looks really cool.
Yeah, and I'm not pressing very hard with my brush because again, I want to encourage those thin spots which you see through here. And a lot of times I'm going to turn my canvas to reach this other side because I do tend to like pulling towards myself when I'm doing this kind of work. Utilize this razor thin edge of your brush as you work around this circle. It will come in handy for sure. Flat brushes and round brushes both have their pros here. Okay. So yeah, just a thin white coat to start. There is a painting on our individual kits page on our website, gobox.com. So the individual kits are ones that we sell where you can buy any of our projects from our boxes, or some of them are paintings we teach in class at the studio. And we have one called Moon River, which uses the same color palette, and it would be a very good one to match along with this one if you were like wanting to hang a couple themed paintings together. And it's fun to do. It's really fun. We've got a video for that, and you can buy the kit on our website if you want to do that.
We're actually getting ready to relaunch our website in the next couple months. And one of the things we're going to offer is, if you are a subscriber but you've missed some past subscription, you don't have to be a subscriber. We're going to offer some of the past months. So not just all kits, but if you want to get, let's say, July of 2020, you can order the July of 2020 kit, which will have both of the paintings and all that fun stuff. And or you can pick to choose one at a time, but you'll save more by getting the kit.
Okay, I'm going to wash my brush. Oh, yeah, Linda, you're a follower of William Hawkins now. I love it. That's awesome. He posts videos of how he develops his painting, and they're sped up, and they're so mesmerizing. I watch them all the time. Okay, so now we're going to start adding the darker colors on the moon, the craters. And at first, they might feel a little harsh, but you can easily glaze over them with white once they're dry, and that will make it really nice because it will sort of soften the whole look. I want to use my number 8 brush, and I'm just going to mix blue and purple together just a little. And if you want, you could add just a tiny bit of white in there to lighten it a touch. We want it on the dark side though, dark side of the moon. And I'll just start tapping. I think of it like, how if you look at pictures of Earth and there's continents that look like giant patchy things? That's what I think about for the moon when I'm doing this. And you can leave some areas that are still lighter. Because really what these are giant Grand Canyons, right, Paul? Isn't that what that is?
They're
Sea of Tranquility.
No, they're impact craters.
Impact craters.
So
and
a little different
than a
little different than a Grand Canyon. But.
Okay. Well, I learned something every day. So yeah, I think of it like the way the Earth looks. So you've got these giant patches. And this is very dark and harsh, so might bother you a little bit, but try not to worry too much about that because we'll soften it up.
Feel free to reference a photo.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I did when I painted this. I got it going. I was like, I can paint the moon, and then I started looking at it and thinking, I really should look at a picture and figure this out. One thing you can do, you can wash your brush, dry it off, and you can use just your slightly damp brush and kind of soften the edges of these big craters. And I'll occasionally do it, and I'll wipe my brush every time. So you're smudging it out.
You don't have to be a perfectionist on this because people will understand what it is.
Yeah, most people are going to know exactly what you were attempting to paint here.
I think sometimes we get too detail oriented and without giving people credit that they can kind of interpret it. As I'm being really detail oriented with my moon right now.
I am going to let this dry, and I will come back with some white. I feel like this could stay as it is, but I would like to come back with some white and just soften some parts of this, especially right through here. And I'm going to skip a step on our sheet. If you're following along on the sheet, we'll go back to it. When we do the dots on the sky for the stars, that's when I'll do the little white reflective dots that are on the moon. And those actually have a name. I forgot what it was.
Alien
They're called
bases.
Highlands or something like that. So, let's see, what do I want to do next? I want to do the shrubby stuff.
Shrubbery.
This shrubby stuff. Right here, we'll be careful. We won't go over the moon quite yet. We'll come just under it. But over here, we'll play around. And what brush do we want to use? Largest brush. Oh, oops. We want to mix the phthalo blue and violet. And you'll have a look at it. I'm going to do equal parts. You'll have a look at it when you get to your canvas. Is it dark enough? Yes, I can definitely see it against the sky color. And what we're going to do is we're going to just create this random shrub hedgy thing that comes down. It comes down close to the waterfall. Don't go over your moon quite yet. Like I said, we'll do that in a bit. I like to dot in the outline of it first. I feel like sometimes that's kind of helpful. You can use the corner of your brush or even a smaller brush to dot that in if you want. So we can fill that in down to the rocks. Don't worry if you overlap your rocks because they get a second coat of paint anyways, and you'll be able to see through them to know where that second coat of paint needs to go. But I'm just dabbing in paint. So I want that kind of textured look. We'll refine these edges with a smaller brush. I've got glare here, so I'll tilt this. You can see it is darker, but I know when I put it down here, it looks like it's not, but it is. It's darker. So I'm just sloppy along the edge of the rocks because it doesn't matter if you overlap them. A little time saver to not have to worry about carefully going along that edge there.
Probably be conscious to not do a parallel line, maybe?
Yeah. It's going to feel strange right here where it goes under the moon because it's going to look really crowded. And like I said, we'll fix that. So we do have a couple trees that come out of here. We'll do those in just a second. So I'll show you the trees on the original. They're just generic fir trees right back here and here. I don't know if you can see them. Got kind of strange glare again. And I'll do the tree trunks first. And right here, if you've got really dark paint up in your sky here, you might mix a small amount of black into your color just to darken it, or more of the dark blue, whatever helps it to show up a little bit. It doesn't have to be a super hard contrast. It just needs to show up. And I'm going to just use the thin edge of my brush and go straight up and off. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight. It's a tree trunk. They don't always grow perfect.
Rarely do.
And another one. I remember one of my favorite quotes by Bob Ross. I was watching one of his paintings. Gosh, it must have been about 10 years ago. And he was painting a tree and he goes, "Oh, well, that one's crooked. I guess we'll send it to Washington."
Hey now, hey
so
now.
hard. That was so funny. That was hilarious. Good old Bob Ross. He had the best things to say. All right. So yeah, they're just going to be funny floating lines there for a bit. And I am going to put this in the water, wash it off real quick. We'll put foliage on those tree trunks in a while, but I feel like I'm ready to go back and soften up some of the spots on the moon. Let's have a look at the two compared. So this one's a little softer, a little brighter, and that's because I came in with some white and overlapped some of these craters, and that brought some brightness in too. All right, I'm gonna go back to my number 8 flat brush. Just plain old white. Start anywhere you want in a white area and just spread out that bit of paint you put on your brush to brighten things up. And you can glaze over, which means you're going to go really light with a thin amount of paint. You can glaze over any of these that feel a little too harsh. Or you can come in and dab some white speckles in here for the highlands.
I'm not gonna do any more with my moon. I'm happy with it.
Good. So here I'll glaze over a spot so you can see. Now, one thing you can do with the glaze too, you can add water. Like I could mix a little water and white together on my palette, make a real watered down version of the color. And you want to, before you touch your canvas with your brush, you might dab it off on your towel. And then you can just, with that watery white, just glaze over if you have your spots that feel a little too dark. So have a look at that. You can see it's softer than it is down here. I don't want it super soft though, so I might just do that in some parts randomly, but then come in with the opaque white paint in between some of these craters. Remember when we used to use our telescope and look at the moon?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Where is that telescope?
It's out in the garage.
Okay. We bought this huge, we may have talked about it on here before, we bought this huge telescope when our son was about 8.
Yeah, 7 or 8.
He was really into the constellations and planets, and so we bought one, and we had pretty clear backyard then, but now it's pretty grown in with trees and bamboo. But we could see Saturn's rings along with some of Saturn's moons, like
No,
couple of them?
we've seen him being able to see as many as 5 of them at once.
wow, how many moons does Saturn have?
It has a lot.
Oof.
It's big enough telescope that we have to use the pickup to move it.
Yeah, we brought it up to, we have a friend who has some property, and we brought it up for a party once. It was a hit. That was fun.
It was fun. Hayden and I drove past there the other day.
Oh, nice. Okay, getting close to where I'm gonna leave my moon alone. Right now I am just dragging my brush around with next to no paint on it, just to soften up some of the edges here. But I'm pretty happy with it. It doesn't really look like the exact location of all the craters on the moon, but it'll be like, oh, this is the other side. This is the side we don't see. Just spun around for us. Plus, we'll have some other stuff that goes over some parts of this. We've got some trees and shrubs. They can work as painter's band-aids. That's what we call them. Painter's band-aid. The tree. Okay. Works for me as I keep working. I need to stop. Stop touching it. Okay.
You're doing that thing.
Let's go ahead and put the stars on the sky, and there's a few dots on the moon for little impact zones, I guess. And super easy part to do. Some of you guys have done this before. We use the littlest brush, but we use the handle in. It's nice and pointy. It's perfect for this. Stamp it in your white paint. Just pick up a little dot. I'll start way in the corner, because the first time you dip it in, the dots are going to be the biggest. So I like to put those off to the side. And then I'll use, sometimes I'll feed off another. I'll just use little dots in some of these dark spots in the moon. Gives it some sparkle. It's like we just sprinkled some glitter on it, which is always good. I'm gonna do my super technical zoom in. There you can see, I've got weird glare going, but you can kind of see those dots. When it was down on the table, it was a little harder to see. You can put as many on here as you like. However glittery you are feeling, just go for it. I'm going to go ahead now and start working on stars. Now, around your moon, you wouldn't necessarily have a ton of stars showing because it's so bright around the moon, but outside in these dark areas, just go crazy. Go crazy with the dots. But I will definitely put a few in close to the moon because it would look strange to not have any.
Technically, the stars are still there. They just don't show up as vibrantly because of the...
Yeah. My painting I bought from William Hawkins was a night scene with stars. I was really surprised that I went with that one because I love his big, full-on, epic cloud scenes. Clouds and trees and mountains. And this one was just...
It was so not like what you've always showed me of his
Yeah.
paintings.
And I don't know. I kept going back to it and... I just thought, this is the one my soul wants, apparently. So it was a night scene in purples and blues, and had some warm colors along the bottom, and some stars. So I guess it was calling my name. Well, I'll just have to buy another one.
Hey, you got a free pass from me on that.
Even if it's like $8,500.
We'll work on that.
Everybody, sign up for GoBox. Buy a big, expensive painting.
We're going to start a GoFund Jenny website. We're just going to bypass the middleman.
Actually, it's more like Fund William.
Well, true. Fund your local artist.
Okay. Hydrate.
Mm-hmm.
And now... I am going to, normally I think I'd go back and start adding the shrubs coming up a little higher over the moon, but some of us might still have wet white paint here, and it might cause a little bit of an issue. So let's go ahead and add our second coat on here. So biggest brush, that was your black and blue mixed together, about equal parts. Actually, it doesn't really matter if you want to do more blue in this. When you paint it on here, it's all going to be dark. Oh, look at you. You always have to go extra.
I'm not doing extra, though.
You are going extra.
I'm just painting.
We'll show Paul's at the end because he does go extra every time.
I'm not doing extra. Like, I'm just looking at this painting and painting it the way I would paint it.
I like the way you paint it. You should have designed it.
No. I like the way you painted it. We have very different styles.
Mm-hmm.
You notice I haven't done a single whimsical or abstract painting for the Go Box in 2 years, right? I'm like, this is what I do. I'm just going to stick to it.
Stick with what you know.
Stick with what I know. So, until it backfires on me, I'm just going to keep rolling with it.
Whimsical for you is a little more challenging for sure.
But you know what's funny is when we were in college, like I did a lot of abstract stuff.
Yeah, but I wouldn't necessarily call it whimsical.
No, I didn't say it was whimsical. I just said abstract.
One thing I want to do, while I've got just a little bit of paint on the brush, and if you have a lot of paint on the brush, either like wipe it off on your craggy rocks here or on your towel, so you have just a tiny bit. And I want to brush some down in the water as the suggestion of a shadow. Like we've got the moon behind, so these rocks would cast a bit of a shadow in the water. Now you don't have to exactly reflect them, and you don't have to reflect them all the way down. I do like to have some of this really pretty color showing through here, but how about on the sides? That would look nice to bring this in from the sides. So then that sort of emphasizes this moon glow on the water. And if you need more paint, just feed off of your little rocks here. Then you're not picking up too much, usually. And we can add any more colors back in here if you feel like this got too dark. Very easy fix. You just want to let this dry a bit before you would add any of the purples or whites or anything back in here.
Okay, now I am doing a little extra.
Of course.
Only because you brought it up.
One thing I did toy around with is I forgot to tell you, I used your Autumn Mist painting as a reference for the design of this. Can you see that?
Oh, yeah.
And
I had to think about
so
that.
it's a daytime one, but the layout was very similar. And I like how you a lot of times will put like a misty color around where the waterfall goes.
You know what's interesting about that painting is if you actually look at it, it doesn't really have substance. Like it doesn't have a cliff face or land. It's just all these like colors that kind of suggest that there's maybe land there, and then the waterfall and the stream just kind of come out of that.
Yeah.
Like muddiness of color.
Yeah. Now this doesn't have to go straight across. You could even you could we do bring another rock in here just because I didn't like how it was just perfectly straight across. So I added another rock in here, but we don't add this quite yet. Although we could, I think this is dry enough, we could definitely do it. Let's do that. This rock here is just solid black. So it's a bit darker than what's behind here, although this is so dark it really looks like the same color. So you can use this big brush or you can switch down to a smaller size. Just pure black. And it starts above this, comes down, and I try to keep it sort of jaggedy. And then it's just going to go straight across. So then we have, or it could even go down in an angle if you want to go extra like Paul. But so it kind of just looks like the water has something to flow around and makes this bottom area a little bit more interesting rather than just being straight across here. You could even put another over on this side if you want. You kind of get to dictate your little world here. A lot of times in class when I'm teaching this sort of shape, I'll always say it's like a little dinosaur or Nessie floating in the water. Just see the humped up back. All right. It's looking the way I want it to look. And now we can go back to refining the shrubs. I'm going to wash this big brush and set it aside. I do have a tendency to just leave my brushes in the water. Sometimes I'll wash my brush and realize I'll have like 5 or 6 brushes in my water cup and they're all rattling together. So this number 8 flat brush, that's your second largest in your set if you get the kit. And I'm going to mix the blue and purple together. You might already have some left on your palette, whatever you're using. Paper plate works great. A sheet of aluminum foil works great. These I have in stock now, and I sell them for, gosh, I don't know how much they are. They're on our website.
They're not very expensive.
$8 each, and it's 50
like
sheets. 50 sheets of like wax paper. It's stuck with a line of glue, so it's not going to float all over the place.
It's actually
I do love these.
2
very
sides,
much.
I think, right? Or is it just one? Oh, it's got it's got the binding at the top, and then it's one other side.
Okay, so I'm going to use this color. I'm going to start down here and lower in the shrub so I knock off excess paint. And then as I get up here, this is where I'll sort of refine the edge and dab it around. You can change the shape of your hedgy thing. These are probably just briars or those flammable things that grow in the woods.
Hey, come on now.
Now is the time for blackberries, so man, I really want to go out and
let's not talk about like fires and stuff. We've been hit pretty hard the last 5 years or so. I mean,
don't want to jinx it.
The Columbia River Gorge.
Let's talk about blackberries.
Yeah, let's do that.
So there's a farmer's market out here every Saturday in Sherwood, and there's a local place that sells veggies and fruits. And my gosh, the blackberries were huge. I have never seen such humongous blackberries, and they were so good.
Were they
so sweet and delicious?
Were they blackberries or were they Marion berries?
I asked him. He said they were blackberries. Because that's what I thought too. I was like, oh, are these Marion berries? Nope, blackberries. We do put some highlights on these shrubs too, so they're not just going to stay plain. We can give them some depth and dimension. But over here, I want to, you can brush it up over the moon, or you can do it on this side like I did. I kind of did a reverse thing. So this side, I don't have it touching the moon, but this side is overlapped. You can do both. Whatever you like. If you don't like your moon, cover half of it with shrubs.
Do it. Do it now.
So there's no HOA here. You can have this wild and out of control patch. Okay, that's enough.
Sorry.
I'm going to end up covering the lower part of my moons. I think it's just going to look better that way. Well, I'm definitely committed now.
You did it.
Stop.
Why? I'm having fun. That's what we're supposed to be doing. I can maybe it's all serious.
Mine definitely looks like an HOA has been here. Clipping away. So I better turn some of these into different shapes. Now over the moon, it can be a little bit see-through. Like I can see it right here. I can see the moon behind here, and I maybe don't always want that. If you just let this part dry and go back and hit it with a couple dabs of paint as a secondary coat in a little while, you can
hit it with a little ka-chow.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna wash the brush. Where are we on to next? Let's see. We'll do the waterfall base.
Ooh. The base.
White, blue, and violet. So I don't do a pure white waterfall, but I do paint in pure white streaks later. So I start with more of a grayish lavender waterfall. So we're gonna mix white, a little dot of blue. I am running out of lavender.
I know, I had to refresh
There's
mine.
some right there. Maybe you can refresh mine.
Oh, paint tender. A little more lavender, if you please.
So there, make a light blue first or light lavender and then add the next color in. So I'm adding a bit of lavender. Or I'm sorry, a bit of violet, I mean.
You're turning violet, Violet.
So here's my color.
You ever notice I say that every single time we say violet?
Yeah, you do.
I don't know what that is.
I have a lot of paint on my brush. This technique, I want my brush to run out of paint as I brush it down so that it looks like the water is thinning out and breaking up the way it would do in a waterfall. And so I'll wipe the brush off on my paper towel so I knock off most of it. At the top, if you have a flat spot and you want to do like a little flat pool, that kind of zigzaggy down and then do your waterfall. It comes just to the left of this big pyramid rock. And you can turn your brush once in a while and use the skinny edge and maybe paint some more like wavy lines along with these, using the flat side of the brush. But see how I'm letting that run out of paint? I don't really have a lot of room for a little pool up here.
I think sometimes
I did on the other one.
the pool is kind of like a really deceptively difficult thing to execute sometimes.
Yeah. And then you can bring it down into the water here just a little. If it looks too like a piece of tape stuck on here, break it up by adding some little wavy tendrils to the sides just to keep it from being a perfect shape. You could also think about like maybe it's going to come down, it's going to hit a rock and spill over and go down like that. And then, you know, a rock is poking out here, and so they would kind of meet under that rock, but it would spill over it. And I could come back in with some dark paint and make that actually look like it's a rock. And then you don't have to do the secondary fall, but if you want to, it would be over this side. I have a big gap this time. I made a giant pyramid, I guess. What am I doing? Oh, I messed up there. I'll fix that. So I have a little spot here where the secondary waterfall can go. Definitely a little further away. Twin Falls. So yeah, I had a little mess up here. For some reason I was painting up onto that rock. It's like, no, a waterfall wouldn't do that. Not in this world.
That's something that's
Clean that up.
important is those, if you've got a split waterfall, those two edges should be even with each other.
Yeah, definitely. I need to fix that. Little fixing going on tonight. I'll put a little rock here. Little peekaboo rock. So yes, right now the waterfall's sort of grayish looking. And we'll add to that, and we'll also reflect some of this into the water. But while this dries, and there's a couple fixes I need to do at the top of my waterfall. They got a little squirrely. But while that dries, I want to highlight the shrubs. Let's show that on the painting. So I've got these highlights along here and here where the moonlight would be glancing off the edges. And I've taken this giant mound of shrub and I've broken it up by adding highlights down in here just to give it some extra depth. And what color did I use? It's the same color, I believe. Let me just check. Light blue, so this phthalo blue mixed with white, but this is so close to it, I'm just going to use it. And I'm going to use my number 8 flat brush. Not a lot of paint, just pick up a tiny bit and just dab along these front edges where think about how the moon would highlight these areas that stick up. I like to let my brush run out of paint or use even less on here, and then I'll show you how to add a secondary shrub here. Just tap out a shape.
What are you doing? Oh, that. Okay.
Highlighting.
We're good.
Add some here. And again, I'm using very little paint on my brush. Almost looks like clouds. And there would definitely be some highlights across here. I was going to add a second coat of the blue, but I think adding the highlight's going to cover that line of the moon that I could see there. This is a part of your painting that you could work developing for a long time if you wanted to. You could really make this look pretty three-dimensional just by playing around, and playing around is super important because
that's how we learn.
That's how you learn, and then you can always go back and cover anything. With acrylic paint, you can go back and cover anything and start over with like this stuff. Let's say that I got a little crazy with my highlights. I could just mix this dark color, come back in, cover it. And this area here, technically this is kind of light through here. Technically it would be darker as it's away from the moon, so I would maybe add a darker shading through there. I'm using the largest brush just to get a lot of paint on there at one time. So playing around with the highlights and then darker colors for shadows, you can really give this some nice depth if you wanted to take the time and work it all out. Sometimes I'll use my finger to smudge things around if needed. If I want to soften something. Gosh, the glare there, it's hard to see. Here's what I did. It was hard to see for you guys. Now I want to add foliage onto the trees, and I kept it super simple. This was the just blue and purple. Maybe add a little black to that if it's not dark enough. Biggest brush. I'm going to use the thin side of the brush and literally, so we're not seeing the pointy top of this tree. So we're really only having to paint half of this tree. Let me show you the original. There it is. You can see that foliage there. So we're not having to paint the pointy top of the tree, just the lower part. And I just use the thin edge of my brush and tap little, almost tight zigzags back and forth. They do get a little wider as you get close to the bottom. And you can occasionally make them droop down a bit. If you see a lot of your trunk, go back through and just dab some darker paint on there so you don't see as much of it. Again, we got a funky glare. Dark paint colors and this lighting.
If we want to spend some money on different lights, I know we can fix that. The one thing about having a YouTube channel and doing this type of thing is like there's no end to upgrading in terms of lighting. I think we do pretty good, but
there. Very simple trees. I didn't really make them elaborate because there's so much going on in this painting. Okay, washing the big brush now. Let's add some white to our waterfall. And oh, my dragon.
you get really close.
I probably have drug it through once or twice.
Billowy sleeves when you're reaching over things, not a good thing.
Okay, so let's get some white in the waterfall. Number 8 flat brush, that's your second largest in your set, which is a small brush. If you're picking out brushes on your own, the numbers are funny. I've noticed like I can buy a number 8 in one brush and it doesn't really match another number 8 in a different brand.
There's no
this. I don't know what the deal is.
There's no
with
standard guideline, just so you know.
That makes it nice and easy.
Yeah.
This is about a 1/4 inch wide. A 1/4 inch wide flat brush is perfect for most of the stuff we do, and we end up using this brush probably 90% of the time. Well, except for when we're doing Paul's paintings, we use the big brush.
Yeah, I think one of the things that people have a tendency of loading up on too small of brushes in general.
Yeah.
And it's like if you're going to this, I highly recommend going into a place that carry brushes and actually putting your hands on the brushes and feeling the bristles and all that stuff compared to just relying on shopping online. So
let's take our brush, dip it in the white paint, just pick up a little. Oops, maybe a little more than that. Just a little on the tippy top of the bristles.
We should do some product review videos of the brushes we sell.
Yeah, we could. And I'm just going to add some streaks of white through here. Now you want to leave this background grayish color. This white is just an accent. It's maybe areas where the water's flowing a little harder or it's breaking against the rock. Like right here I have that rock there. And so it's lighter in color.
Less is more.
Yeah, just add a tiny bit at a time. And notice I'm using the thin edge of my brush mostly. You can once in a while turn it and use the wide edge just to get the occasional thicker streak in there. And these don't all have to start at the top. Notice I started this one down here. How much white you put on here is entirely up to you.
Just avoid racing stripes. They look great on muscle cars. They don't make the best waterfalls.
Having a shaky hand is good here.
It really is. I would actually even say that using your smallest brush at times in this process is...
I'll put a little weight across. If you have the pool at the top, it would definitely be getting highlighted from the moon. And now I want to reflect some of this into the water. Let's have a look. Right here, you can barely see it because I didn't make it super intense, but you definitely see the reflection of it. And then we get to do this fun little splashy stuff. So just take whatever's left on your brush and brush it just below the waterfall. I have like nothing left on my brush, so I'm gonna have to pick up a little white, but I want to wipe it on the towel first. And just brush it straight down under the waterfall. If you need to use your larger brush for this, you can. I'll do this one too. The splashy stuff covers that part. So I'm not really worried about how that looks so much. My brush is drying out a lot. Here. One thing that's kind of cool you can do here while this is still wet, just clean or wipe your brush off and use the skinny edge and just go back and forth right through those 2 streaks you added in there, or 1, whatever you got going on, and it'll kind of smudge them out horizontally. Maybe I'll even add a little more white back on my brush because mine had dried, just to kind of show you what I'm talking about. So let's do it. Let's do it. I'll do a bold white streak here. Wipe my brush off real quick and then back and forth. It's accomplishing 2 things. It's adding some ripples and then just smooth, sort of smudging this out a bit so it's not so harsh. And we can add the water splashes now. They're very easy. They are done very similar to what we did up here, actually, just with white. Same brush, your number 8 flat. And I just sort of dab around at the bottom, thinking that, yes, this is going to make some water splash up. Let your brush run out of paint so that you have some very thin, transparent ones mixed in with some more opaque. You can kind of curl your brush, little curly cues here and there, too, almost like creating a foggy-like texture, which I love. I love that. Give it that misty glow. And you can even suggest that the reflection of that in the water under it. One of the things you can do here too that's optional, you can wet down some white paint with some water and use your brush and just do this little flick thing. That's fun. You can add little spray dots. Okay, I'm just about ready now to start this deciduous tree. Anything that we add on here that we're adding as we go along, you can always leave off because you're kind of the designer of this. I'm just your guide. So this tree, you could position it somewhere else. You could position it over here. I just kind of put it right through the middle, which is very unusual. I don't normally do that. I think it was because my moon was so off to the side. But yeah, you can position that wherever you like.
So is this, so I gotta ask, because other people are gonna wonder, is this a after fall tree that's lost its leaves, or is it a dead tree?
I was thinking it's an after fall tree. I don't like to paint dead trees.
All right.
Or think of them that way.
Right.
All right, so what are we using color-wise? Just gotta look here.
Oh,
It's been a bit since I designed this. I have violet and black mixed.
I had to extend your Indiana Jones start.
Is that what that was? So violet and black mixed together is going to make an off black. So it's going to be more on the charcoal side and definitely very dark. Like when you looked at it on the original, you probably would have guessed it was black, but I do like a softer tone. And wherever you have it grow out, I'm just going to figure that out. I'm going to put it right here. Maybe a little more. I'm going to put a little more off to the right just to change it up. So I'm going to go up and off the top of the canvas. Notice how it's sort of wavy. That was partly my hand doing it, but partly I know I don't want a perfectly straight tree. And trees are always wider at the bottom where they grow out of the earth. So I'll do that and then have it just sort of thin out as it gets up to the top of the canvas. Your tree can be thicker trunked than this. That glare is bad. You can make a twisty, more twisty, robust tree. And then I'll probably paint like one or two branches with this number 8 flat brush, but all the rest I'm going to do with a small brush. So if you are painting some branches with this, use the thin edge, and just above the shrubbery, I'm going to come up and out and lighten your pressure as you get to the tip of your branch. That will make the end of it more pointy just by lightening your pressure, how hard you push. Do one over here. Maybe this one will go off the top.
Are you saying it's a shrubbery?
What?
You said something about the shrubbery. You said something about the shrubberies.
Oh, sometimes my brain doesn't catch up with my mouth. Now I'm gonna switch to the little brush.
I was just gonna say,
you can get all these little twigs. I do have the occasional broken branch, but lots of little short ones mixed in with longer ones. One thing that's helpful when you use this small brush is if you add a drop of water to your paint mix, a drop or two, just to thin it out. And another thing that's helpful is I will a lot of time instruct people to turn their canvas upside down. And rather than thinking of this as a tree, think of it like a forked lightning bolt. And it's easier to pull towards yourself rather than painting upward. So this is very helpful for a lot of people because it takes the pressure off painting a tree. You're just thinking of it as something different. You're thinking of it like a lightning bolt.
The other thing,
and that lightning bolt split like this.
The other
just
thing
like a tree
that
does.
I always like to try to tell people when we're painting trees like this is think of the branches as being Jack Skellington, not a garden gnome.
What?
Think of the branches as being long and
yes,
sinewy,
they're Slenderman.
rather than short and compact.
Yeah. I will flip this around just so you guys can see what I'm doing. Try both. Try painting up and out, and then turn it around and try doing a couple the other way and see which one your brain likes better. Then definitely if you want some broken twiggies down there, even like in between here. This one went through the Oregon ice storm. And sometimes the branches will hang closer to horizontal. I have seen a few where they hang downward, but they're usually
broken,
strange looking in a painting. I like to have some go over the moon. I just love that look. Reaching towards the moon. The longer the branches, the longer branches are better than doing short, the short choppy branches where they're all one length. Those tend to look more like deer antlers. I've seen it. I think beginning painters, we all do it. I've done it before.
If you're a Lord of the Rings fan, think Legolas, not Gimli. It's true.
You're dissing all us short people, Paul.
I'm not. There's lots of beautiful short trees.
There are. Little Japanese maples. They're so pretty. There. Trees are definitely something to just spend some time practicing. Paint them on a plate. Paper plate, not a real plate.
Yeah,
Paint them on a paper plate, piece of paper.
Get some newsprint.
Yeah, a newsprint pad from an art store is perfect for practice. So there, I'll show you the two together with the positioning of the tree. This one's further to the right. I didn't feel like it made any huge, remarkable difference to the painting, but I was feeling like changing it up. And now we're going to highlight the cliffs. We're getting close to where we can call it done. It's just mainly down to highlights. And what did I use here? I don't remember. It was kind of a dark color. Okay. We're on step 8, which is the last step. Use this time to refine any shrubs or trees. So yeah, you can do that anytime when this is over. I'm just trying to think what order I want to do these steps in. One of the things I do when I paint water it's something that could be left off. It's something I learned from Bob Ross, actually. He puts a thin light line along the edge of the water where it meets whatever landform he has there. And you can see I have it here too. Let's look at the difference. So try to fit these both on the screen. There we go. There you can see the difference with the water line it adds a bit of current to the water. Makes it look maybe a little more glassy. I think this is where we'll use our small number 4 brush that we haven't used yet. I want to use the thin edge of it. So dip it in the water. If it's brand new, just sort of push it very lightly across the bottom of the cup. And let's add a drop of water to some white. It will turn sort of light blue on your palette because of the color of your water. So I want a watery mix. Now when you mix it, you've got a lot of paint on your brush. Wipe your brush off and then just re-dip the tip of the bristles in the paint. And then using the thin edge, just very light pressure, go across where the water meets the land. Don't go straight across your waterfall, just stop at your waterfall, and because it's kind of doing its own thing. And then I don't just leave just a single line, I actually put in some little movement ripples. Same brush, same paint. But this would create a lot of rippleage in the water.
Oh, you're stepping into my territory, making up words.
Making up paint words. But yeah, you would get a lot of movement in the water from this. And I usually have to remix more paint because I tend to not make enough and it dries fast. So short, choppy little ripples are good here, right through your waterfall reflection. And then around this rock, I like to just come out like a tight little curve here and come across the bottom where the rock meets the water, and then put a few ripples along there too.
That almost sounded like where the rubber meets the road.
There. Definitely have a little movement in the water now, not a ton, probably not as much as there would really be in nature. I feel like I need a few extra dots here as I'm looking at it on the monitor. Don't we just do that? We just can't stop. Now I'm going to highlight the rocks and the tree, this tree here, and that will be the last little bit other than going back and cleaning up anything that you want to. Let me show you the highlights here. So we have this, have a look at this one. We've got a solid mass of like a wall of rock with no depth or dimension. And this one has a bit more interest going on. So I've created some rocks that come down here. It looks like something you could climb up. Highlights, so think about our moon is our light source. It's the giant light bulb. It's going to cast light on every part of these rocks that stands up and faces that way, and then on this side it's going to be facing that way, and then along here, yes, you get the moonlight. I could probably have put a stronger highlight here. Oh, we do need to put a little shadow in our water from this tree trunk. Very simple to do. We'll do that last. Color-wise, this is a very dark muted blue, and on the instructions it says to mix the blue and white, but I'm going to have us add a little black in there because we actually want it to be kind of a gray color. And I use the biggest brush, but you can use a small brush in any areas like this little triangular rock where you need a smaller touch there. So wash and dry that big brush off. I'm going to see if I can tilt this a little. That doesn't really do much. I need something that's going to tilt it like that.
We can work on that.
Okay.
I happen to know a guy who has a woodworking
I'll just
shop.
hold it for now. So let's mix blue and white anywhere on your palette. Everything's probably pretty dry.
It's getting there for sure.
And I want to make kind of a 1970s denim blue. That's what I call it. And then I'll add a tiny bit of black to it, just to make it on the gray side. If you added too much black, just put a little white in there. I would call this a smoky blue. I don't want a lot of paint on the brush, so I'll wipe it off. Maybe redip the tip of the bristles. And then if you've done any of Paul's classes, he does this thing where he sort of scrapes the highlight on. That's what I like to do because your brush will just naturally run out of paint. And then you get more of a natural looking highlight than if you were to just take full on solid paint and just paint little perfect brush strokes. So I do like to, I'm using sort of this corner of the brush, scraping it on. And I like how subtle this color is. You can really get the feel that the moon is lighting that up. And you can create your own rock ledges. And the cool thing is, if you don't like some of them that you do, you can mix this black and blue color, paint right over the top, hair dry it or let it dry, and then start over with your highlights. You can do it multiple times if you really want to. Or just put it aside for the night and do it the next day. Sometimes I've had to do that.
Oh, I've definitely had to do that.
Yeah. Some areas, like right here, where this is kind of more flat across, it would probably get a stronger highlight. So I might come back and do a secondary coat that's more solid there. Same along here, along this edge. I think I'll get a highlight here. The top edge of all of these should be highlighted. I'm running out of paint. Why did I mix such a small amount? Why do I do that to myself? I know why I do it. It's because I don't want to have a lot of paint on my brush, so I mix a small amount. Sometimes use your finger to smudge things around. I do that a lot. Get some highlighting over here.
You know, it's interesting you talk about using your finger, and I had watched a video, I can't remember the guy's name, but it was on an OPB or something like that, and he was a oil painter, and one of the things he'd spent a lot of time talking about art history and like what the masters did and stuff, and
cool.
He had mentioned that the difference between a really good painter and the masters is the masters break free of the confines of using a brush.
I want to break free.
Yeah, and so it becomes just like it's a fully immersive process at that point where the corner of a shirt or a scarf or a paint rag or a thumb or your nose, whatever.
It's like the Green Lady.
Yeah, but it all becomes this immersive process.
And a highlight down here too, you guys.
Where it just, what you're using in your hand doesn't matter. It's the finished effect that matters. And so that's kind of something that is, especially like, I think that's a really big deal. I think that's what keeps it from being digital feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Makes it feel organic.
For sure. We had a lady at one of our, Paul and I have known each other for a long time. In fact, in October we're celebrating 25 years of marriage. We got married pretty young, 22.
No, we were only 21.
Yeah, and anyway, we took college art classes together, and there was one lady that we always called the Green Lady because she always would have paint all over her face, and it was one of those things where you could tell she purposely put it there.
I don't know if she purposely put it there or if she was just one of those people that just was like, I'm fully immersed in my art, you know, and it just was like kind of like a concerted effort to be messy, but not necessarily.
She was the Green Lady.
She was doing.
Whatever happened to the Green Lady?
Well, you don't remember why we called her the Green Lady is because her
project
was a paper mache woman.
Yes.
That was then painted green.
That's right.
Like Kelly green.
I'm using my number 8 flat brush, the little bit smaller brush, to just come through and do some more refined areas, and then this little triangular rock here.
Wouldn't it be funny if she was like one of our subscribers and
she wouldn't remember?
But no, we just totally.
She wouldn't know we were talking about her.
She probably would. We just totally laid it out there.
Oh, I'm sure there's other people who went to college who did paper mache ladies. Definitely.
It painted bright green. I'm sure there's so many people that have done that.
If you're out there, Green Lady, you were an inspiration. We're still talking about you to this day.
Hey, I admire it. I admire it. I've never been a person that's been like, I'm just gonna get paint all over myself. And not that I'm like meticulously, like, intentionally clean when I paint, because my paintings are actually very messy, but I just have never been that person that needed to put a tarp down to paint.
Yeah, I don't get a lot of paint on myself, but I have gone into stores after teaching a Van Gogh class and then gone home and like gone to wash my face at night, and there's like a streak of black randomly like over by one ear or something. It's probably where I had it on my hand and didn't know and like itched my face or something.
I do get
That's always fun to discover late at night when you've gone to several different places.
I always wonder, like, because I have a tendency of getting paint on my hands, and that's about it. But I always wonder, like, when we go, it's been not an uncommon thing for us to stop for dinner or a drink or something after a class and have paint all over our hands. And I always wonder what people think.
Look at these crazies. So if you want to make a little bit of a stronger highlight here and there, I mix a slightly lighter color just by adding more white. And you can come through and pick some of these higher areas that would have a stronger highlight. Very lightly add some stronger bits. And it's nice. It does give it that extra little oomph. It's like putting the garnish on the plate of food. So any of these little areas that stick up, maybe down here would have just a bit. This is a part of painting that I would love to practice more because I tend to be too smooth. And you'll notice when you see Paul's, this is very rough. And I tend to be like, it's got to be perfect.
Thinking to myself, but I didn't want to say it, but that is such a distinctively Jenny approach to doing rocks. And that's not a bad thing, because like everybody's got their own way of doing it. And sometimes I think people try too hard to break away from what
you're locked into is your style.
No. Well, I do that. I mean, I get locked in, but I think sometimes people try too hard to be something other than what they are.
I definitely have fallen into. I try to be William Hawkins. It never works.
You just got to be Jenny and just do your thing.
Okay, so let's get a last little highlight on the tree trunk and a few of the branches, not all of them. They're all very small, so painting a highlight on some of these small ones can actually have the effect of making the whole entire branch disappear. So just a few on the trunk and just some of the taller or thicker branches. Using my little brush, and I need more paint. So it's your same color, that white, blue with a little black to make it on the grayer side.
Break out through.
Doesn't have to be this exact shade. It can be. Sorry. It can be slightly different. And one of the things that's cool about highlighting a tree, you can make it look like tree bark. I'm wiping some paint off my brush. I had a lot. By scraping it on in little vertical patterns that are kind of rough. I need a tiny bit of water in that.
Like New Kids on the Block rough?
We're rough.
Because they're hanging tough?
Okay.
That's okay.
But think about where your moonlight is hitting on the tree. So it's going to hit this left side, a few of the left side branches. Technically, yes, if I took the time and had a hairline fine brush, I would want to highlight all of these that were facing the moon. But my brush is not small enough.
So Linda says she's fascinated with rocks and tree trunks, and that's where she wants to improve.
Yeah, me too. Paul can teach us.
Yeah.
He does a really good job. What's your painting this month? Do we have it here?
Yeah,
yes,
it's
I'll
right
grab
there.
It. We're done with this one, you guys. So
pretty much.
You can refine anything that you need to go back and work on. So this is where, if you've never seen us before, you'll see how different our styles are. And you'll see it when I show you Paul's painting tonight.
Now, these are the exact same colors used.
Yeah, same palette. This is Paul's. He'll be teaching this next Friday.
Yep.
And so, yes, we get lots of rocks and trees. His style is definitely thinner paint, I would say. And
it doesn't have to be, but...
like your trees, I can see you use very thin paint, but then you use thicker paint where you do the highlight.
But isn't that crazy to think that they're the exact same four colors?
Yeah.
To make those two
You didn't
paintings.
use a whole lot of purple in yours.
I actually used a lot of purple.
I like this.
Yeah.
Oh, I see bits of the purple. Yeah, you did, and you used it in
Everything's
the
got purple in it.
So we live in Oregon, and so this is very cascadey looking, but it could be the Rockies, right?
No, doesn't look like the Rockies.
Okay.
Totally different kind of rock. I mean, to me, this looks like.
I have to look at the Rockies.
Yeah, they're more jagged. They're created totally differently.
Or like tectonic.
They are.
Mm-hmm.
So they're more like the Himalayas, where
Pointy.
it's jagged and
Like a
vertical versus
yeah.
Cone shapes, and so.
And is this any place in particular?
No.
Okay. We got some birds. We're gonna have fun.
Yeah.
So that's next Friday, same time.
That's it. Same time, same paint place.
Now I want to sign my painting. You can use any color you want. And again, you can continue working on your painting whenever, wherever, whatever you want. Like not Michelangelo, Da Vinci said it best. He said, "Art is never finished; it's just abandoned."
Yeah.
And he's right. I mean, I could go back and work on paintings that
It's
I
like the
designed
centaur in Harry Potter, and you're like, painting, this is where I leave you.
Oh my gosh, your movie analogies. Okay, let's have
Well, we just finished watching the Harry Potter series.
We did. We went through all the Harry Potters.
Yeah.
For our daughter who's 15. Okay, so look at that. Definitely two different styles, same painting. That's how it is when we teach in the studio and everybody's drinking wine. You'll walk around and see the same painting just done differently because different hands put it together. And I really like these being more in the foreground with these little after trees here. Those are nice. And lots of extra little rocks down in here.
That's kind of like my
this
thing
really
lately.
goes back. It gives it a lot of perspective rather than just the straight across. But
These have kind of been my thing the last year.
they have.
I kind of feel like it adds some nice depth to a water feature.
Yeah. This is a painting, too, that you could switch the color palette around and switch your purple and blue with, like, orange and yellow, and you could make a completely fall painting here because we've got the tree with no leaves, and you can change out your sky color. Could be orange, white, fading into black, and you can make a brown tone with the orange and black, and yeah. So.
You know what's really funny is, like, I'm looking at this up on the monitor, and I mean, I didn't deviate away from the coaster, but my moon looks very egg-shaped, even though I really...
You traced a coaster.
I traced a coaster, and I mean, it's got a little point on the bottom, and I think probably I just had some variation in...
You know what yours looks like? It looks like, so we were talking about Star Wars earlier. Mm-hmm. It looks like Endor.
It kind of does.
You need to paint a little Ewok down there.
I should paint a little Ewok. Remember that one painting I did? It was like, we were laughing because it just looked very Middle Earth, and so I painted a hobbit smoking a pipe, and he was like, I'll put my hand out here, he was literally like this big.
Oh, thank you, Linda. Thank you so much. I always like, when I look at Paul's when he's done, and I've taught mine, I'm like, oh, thanks for showing me up, Paul. But then if I paint an owl, he can't do it.
No.
So.
Like, I mean, I even have gotten...
If I paint an animal with the face, anything with the face, he struggles.
I even have gotten kind of verbally frustrated even when we're teaching. I'm like, I can't do
this. I guess we
this.
all have our limitations.
Yeah.
You're really good at natural landscapes, for sure.
Yeah.
So we can close out now.
Let's go back. Let's come back. Here we come. Here we are. Hey, guys.
Yeah,
We're
thanks
back.
for painting along with us and listening to our banter.
Yeah, we kind of actually didn't banter too much today. You
Not
were
too
kind of
much.
like in like overdrive. Let's just go full speed ahead. Let's get
I
this
was
painting
not. You're such a liar. I was not.
I'm just observant sometimes.
So we'll be back next week,
Yep.
Friday night, 6:30 p.m. PST. We're in Oregon, and we'll be painting Paul's Mountains. What's that one called? I can't remember. Purple Mountains?
It's just literally called Three Mountains.
3 Mountains. Okay.
Yeah, so...
We got clever with that name.
You know what, actually, I'll be honest, I was a little bit inspired, like when you go up to Timberline Lodge and you look south and you see the stack of mountains. You know what I'm talking about? You see, what's the next one south is like...
On a clear day.
Jefferson, and then you see the sisters, and you just kind of see the tops of them. So it was kind of like that. That was kind of my inspiration on that, was more of like looking down the ridge of the Cascade Mountains versus just like, oh, here's a mountain, there's a mountain.
Very
blah,
nice.
blah, blah.
Well, we'll be doing that next week.
We will be doing that
Thank
next
you
week.
so much to all of our subscribers. As I put labels on the box, as I see so many of your names over and over and over, and we thank you so much for continuing to subscribe.
We had a couple new destinations this month. We had Spain and Hawaii.
Sweet.
So we had our first Hawaiian subscriber.
Appreciate you guys very much. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So much.
Love the support.
We will see you next week.
We'll see you next week. Bye, y'all.
Bye.